IBM has an interesting history in the cloud. I would say that their first gen public cloud didn't receive accolades. They missed a lot of dates. There were some challenges. And then the private cloud, like most on-prem data center folks, really leaned into OpenStack, and OpenStack didn't end up being a thing for private cloud. But the combination now of IBM with its Red Hat capabilities plus its public cloud capabilities is really upping the stakes here, particularly when it comes to regulated industries. And one really good example is the cloud that they have for financial services. So think of this as banks, stonks, crypto, pretty much anything related to money. And there's a lot of regulation. That regulation is not only based on country, but also by region when it comes to the EU, and in the United States when it comes to states. So what that means is you're being regulated every step of the way. Security, transparency, and also protection of the data for the financial services company is paramount. And what IBM has done, to their credit, is they've put together a very impressive, secure, private, and transparent cloud. And I'm going to call it an ecosystem, because they not only have you can build your own application, but they've also invited hundreds and have hundreds of ISVs signed on, so they can come in and participate with it. So they started this with Bank of America, and I don't know if I can say this correctly, BNP Paribas, is that right? As well, another global player. But essentially, this was news of GA for Red Hat. And the other news that was out there was the inclusion of SAP. So SAP doesn't have their own public cloud. Their strategy is to host on other people's cloud, and this is an extension of that. Because quite frankly, if you look at the influence and power that IBM has in financial services, pretty much every credit card transaction, most retail transactions, so any type there's a transaction, most of those go through IBM today. So great example of IBM leveraging their capabilities and their strength and what they're known for. And not that they're the only competitor in this. You know, Google Cloud is making a run for a lot of vertical clouds. And I would say from the public cloud point of view, Google Cloud has been the most aggressive here. And that makes sense to me too, because Google Cloud is really good at things like big data and analytics. So this is one milestone on what I think will be many. I like IBM's focus on vertical clouds, places they can win, and do, quite frankly, a better job than some of the native cloud folks. So good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely, Pat. And I think there's a couple thematic things happening here. One is banks are looking to leverage the cloud in a much bigger way. Financial services as a whole. The competition is rising very, very quickly, and it's not traditional competition so much. It's going to be your crypto, and it's going to come from fintech. And these are companies that are fast, built on cloud, and they are transforming user adoption. You've got companies like SoFi, payment processing companies, Square and PayPal, and they're very disruptive. And the banks are being forced to think about how to be more nimble, and being cloud enabled is going to be an enabler for adding services that are going to make companies more, these banks more disruptive to themselves. And that's something that's important. And so that migration is taking place. So companies like IBM, like Google, you mentioned both, and I think it's worth mentioning both. And of course, you can't say Microsoft and AWS aren't doing this too, but you're seeing a lot of effort for verticalization in cloud and to create solutions. IBM was early. IBM has been very successful. The Bank of America story, one of the biggest banks, not only in the US, but in the world, trusting the company because, let's face it, IBM has an incredible depth of capability in highly regulated industries. And of course, its mainframe business has been rock solid. And the banks have partnered with IBM forever on those kinds of highly regulated workloads that need to be secured and compartmentalized from risk. So as I see it, Pat, going GA is an important moment. It really is a hybrid story in the end. It's going to be parts of the workloads are going to be cloud, parts of the workloads are going to be prem. You're going to see more and more compartments, enclaves. IBM's confidential computing story is going to be very important here as the bank space, but also for healthcare, also for public sector. That's where I really expect IBM to be successful.